at our convention the past couple of years, we've started a Women in Business session plus the reception, and it's really a means to give both the L and LGBT and women in general a platform to share ideas, best practices, unique things about being women in business. So unfortunately, we didn't get to do it in Milan, but we've started these video calls, which I'm loving because I get to see members all over the world. And we'll continue these even beyond COVID. But we have a really special speaker today that I'm going to let Loanne introduce. Loanne is our VP of Communications, based in London / the south of France. And then we also have Martina Barth on here from Cape Town. And Kristen is here from our Fort Lauderdale office, like me. And we also have Tony Lola Reckley, who's Fort Lauderdale based. And who am I missing? Adrian Cardula, based in New Jersey. I think that's it, right? The 5 of you. But anyway, I'll hand it off to Loanne, who's going to introduce Alysse. So thank you, everyone.
Hi, everyone. I know we wanted to reduce the frequency of women in business, but uh-oh. Hang on. Brief connectivity issue. You just froze for a second.
We can see and hear you fine, though.
Okay, perfect. Anyway, I really missed Women in Business. I know we wanted to reduce the number of the calls because it's been quite hectic for everyone as we work through the stages of recovery, which sounds like something completely different than a pandemic. But it's just always a wonderful reunion to have you back with us on these calls, as was witnessed in our chatter leading up to the start. This is actually a great opportunity to introduce someone new to the Women in Business group, Alysse Dalessandro Santiago, who John actually heard speak on one of Ed Salvato's sounding board calls. And he immediately sent me a note and said she's really interesting. She has fresh ideas and we should have her on Women in Business. And so that's exactly what we're doing. I met Alysse in New York, actually, the last time that I did a business trip back in January. And she is indeed fabulous. She puts the Q in LGBTQ+. She's a queer plus-size fashion and travel blogger. And her blog, Ready to Stare, focuses on making travel and fashion more accessible to everyone. She is in the Midwest of the US, and in 2018 was named one of Cleveland Magazine's most interesting people. That is not hard to believe at all. And also last year was on NBC Out's Pride 50. So we're really lucky to have her here with us today. I know all of you are always interested in new ideas for LGBTQ+ marketing, and that's the focus of her presentation today, particularly from the perspective of diversity. So with that, I will hand it over to Alysse.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I am new to this group, but I'm so excited to be here. So I'm going to start my presentation. Let's see. Okay. Can everybody see that? Yes? Okay. Okay, so I'm talking about the importance of diverse LGBTQ content creation and marketing. As Loanne said, my name's Alysse Dalessandro Santiago, and I am from the blog Ready to Stare. So since I am new to this group, I wanted to talk about a little bit about who I am and where I come from this perspective of marketing. So I've worked as a model, an influencer, and a writer since I started freelance writing while I was still in college in 2007, and I have been kind of like influencing and writing on the internet since 2012-ish. So I've been doing this a long time, but because I started as a fashion designer actually in 2012, it was easy for me when I transitioned from designing to blogging to just go into fashion. And so a lot of my experience at this point has been in fashion, but I love traveling. It's been a passion of mine for as long as I can remember. And I really wanted to get more into travel. So I started kind of just taking my own trips and writing about it. And I noticed that there was a lot of people who asked questions about my experience. And they really wanted to see someone who looked like them traveling. These are people who've told me, I haven't gotten on a plane in 20 years because I'm afraid I'm going to get kicked off because of my size. Or I could never go ziplining because, you know, I've heard that there's scales at the facilities and they're going to weigh me and I'm going to get kicked out and it's going to be embarrassing. So I heard so much of that feedback from my audience who came to me for fashion. And I was like, I can fit that need. And then at the same time, identifying as a queer woman, I was like, I'm going to talk about that as well. So I really said 2020 was my year for getting into traveling. And then obviously the world said, haha, I don't think so. But I've still made a lot of amazing connections this year, meeting Loanne and John both this year was amazing, and I'm ready when we're able to travel to get more into it. Let's see. So as I mentioned, I identify as queer and plus size, and my husband is Black and transgender. So I share this because this is relevant to how we travel and also how we are represented when we partner with brands. We don't look what people assume LGBTQ means, meaning that we can pass visually, because my husband passes as doesn't necessarily look transgender or what people think is transgender. We can look like a cis het couple, but at the same time, we're still part of the community, and people who follow us and know us know who we are, how we identify. And so there's still a lot of value in working with content creators who represent letters other than L and G. And I love my L and Gs, no offense to anyone, but there's other letters, and you have to think beyond just same-sex representation. So I included one of our wedding photos here because when we were looking for our wedding photographer, we went to a million different like trade shows. Obviously, being that I've modeled and been in front of the camera for so long, it was the pictures from our wedding was like one of the most important things to me. And when we would go from, you know, this is when wedding trade shows, you could go to them in person. We would go to booth to booth to booth, and we would look and we would say, there's no one Black in any of their pictures. They've got walls and walls of pictures, of sample pictures that they are showing as their portfolio of their best work, and not a single Black person. There's not a single plus size person. And then in some cases, there's not a single LGBTQ couple. And what that says to us is that you don't necessarily want us as your customer, and one, that you're not even maybe capable of serving us as clients. You know, it's not necessarily easy to photograph two different skin tones or two different sizes. So that's an experience that we went to. And I share all of that because perhaps many of you have seen these photos recently. These have been going viral. It's a gender reveal from a child that came out as trans at 17, and they've been on NBC Out and CNN and HuffPost and everywhere. And this is the woman with the green hair, and then the little man bun here. Those are our wedding photographers. So they are going viral right now, and we are so excited for them because obviously we chose them for a reason. When we saw their work, it was immediately clear that they had worked with diverse clients before. They could photograph our skin. They could do what we needed them to do. And obviously we knew that when we booked them, and now they're going viral for such a great reason. And it's totally in line. Their acceptance as people is totally in line with who they are in their work. So I share all that to say that if you want to attract a diverse group of clientele, you need to really walk the walk and let people know who you want as your customers. Okay, so LGBTQ plus marketing should not only feature thin, white, same-sex, cisgender couples. This is pretty much what I've already said. And this is just like the hill I'm gonna die on, is that I just am so tired of, and obviously there's a lot of women on this call, this is Women in Business, you know how frustrating it can be to go to a travel website and just see fit men in Speedos. It's an automatic for me, and again, I'm newer to this space, but it's an automatic, like, I start backing up. Like, I'm not welcome here. And so I think the same can be said for marketing to lesbian women only. If I only see what appears to be lesbian couples, I might think that as a queer woman in a relationship with a trans man that we might not be accepted. And so I think you really have to go above and beyond to make sure that your representation isn't just serving one audience. And I think like we all have our own implicit biases, but I can't tell you the amount of, so this picture here is from a David's Bridal ad that we did. We shot it in Paris. It was beautiful. And they ended up sharing this as an ad. And it was just so meaningful for people to see a couple that look like us in love and traveling. And that representation just, it really, really matters and it makes a difference. And I'm going to share another example that is so important. A lot of you have maybe seen Yari Jones's Calvin Klein, another viral moment for the community, which is amazing. That has gone viral recently. I mean, 233,000 likes, and she's also been featured everywhere. And I share that because a few years ago, Chella Man did the first trans person in an ad for an American brand for Gap. So representation really creates change. And I just think that this really matters because if you are the person that's going to, put these folks and give them this visibility, like it has a huge potential for you to get a lot of like positive press and praise. And that's like a really good thing for your brand. But this comes at a cost to you. You will have to change the way you do things to be more inclusive. And are you prepared to be your model's advocate in the face of ignorance? This is really, really important, something my husband and I talk about a lot. We get a lot of people who want to feature us, and that's great. We're models. You can hire us. That's amazing. But are you prepared to really invest in tackling ignorance? And this is not just from people outside of the LGBTQ community. I get a lot of hate. I don't want to say hate. Feedback from people in the community. Wow, you went through that whole process of coming out and you still married a man. And I'm still queer and he's still trans and we're still part of this community. So are you prepared to be your model's advocate in the face of ignorance? Like you really, if you're going to create diverse marketing, it doesn't just stop with getting all the praise and the accolades for, oh my gosh, you featured a Black plus size trans model. It also means that you are their advocate. You are backing them up. You can see this post from Yari is all of the terrible comments that people left on her images. And where was Calvin Klein? I don't know that they were necessarily there to be her advocate, to be monitoring those comments and to be minimizing harm. So this is really, really important. If you are going to book diverse models, you have to be prepared for community management. You have to be prepared to tackle that ignorance that inherently is going to come with doing something different. People are used to seeing the same type of representation. And when you do something different, you have the possibility of going viral and getting huge attention and accolades, but that comes with a backlash, and you have to be prepared because at some point, if you're not being an advocate, this is going to stop diverse models from wanting to work with you, and that's not good. So one of the things that I talked with my husband about a lot is tokenism versus authentic inclusion, and we're hearing this a lot in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement and brands wanting to be more inclusive in general to Black content creators. Again, I'm not speaking from that perspective personally, but this slide particularly came from my husband, so I'm kind of speaking from him. So tokenism is really like, okay, we're including you because we want to check a box, we want to look inclusive, but we don't actually really want to do any of the work. So authentic inclusion is what you really need to aim for. Tokenism would be that you're paying this diverse talent less than what you're paying everybody else, particularly the thin white talent that you have. So pay everybody fairly. You only have one representative of a marginalized identity. And I have to say, I have been there before. I have been like the one plus size girl in like a sea of like very thin women. I have also been the only queer person. I'm sure you guys have been in that situation. So you want to have a range of identities. you only, and I know this is, I'm preaching to the choir here, you only feature diverse talent for a specific campaign. I can't tell you the amount of people who I only hear from during Pride, and it should really be inclusion and diverse talent all year long. Like, don't just think of booking diverse talent during Black History Month, during Pride. It has to be all the time for it to really make a difference. Is there questions at all? I don't know if I can see them. Okay. Okay, so inclusion only benefits you by making you look good. So this has a lot to do with, like, okay, I want the accolades, but I'm not actually going to manage any of my comments. I'm not going to, tell my audience that, making ignorant statements isn't okay. I'm not going to block people. So you really only want the accolades for being diverse without actually, talking to your talent about how they can do better. Some of this is, I know that plus size models who've been booked on jobs and they show up and there's actually no clothes in their size. I know models who've shown up who are Black women and there's no makeup artists. They don't bring the right foundations. They don't know how to do makeup for Black skin. This is really important. This is what I'm talking about. You really need to make this a collaboration. You need to have people in the room who represent the diverse identities when you're planning something like this. And then another thing is relying on stereotypical tropes for content. I get this a lot as an influencer. It's like, oh, we want you to be doing this, 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 and this. And I'm like, if you really just let me tell my own story and how I enjoy the product or how I liked the destination, I bet you're going to get a much better response from my audience because I know what people respond to. I interact with this audience all day, every day. So allow the talent to really share and produce authentic content. Representation matters. Who you feature in your ads communicates who you want as a customer. So we're going beyond who you're booking now to going into what that means then for your business. The work really doesn't stop at creating the inclusive imagery. This is like one step. This is the first step. You have to back it up with really creating a safe and inclusive environment for your customers. This is just so important because if I go to your website and I see someone who looks like me, and then I go to your destination and I can't fit in any of the chairs because they're not plus size friendly, or, there's no other Black people around and my husband's looking around like, am I going to be safe here? That means that you haven't necessarily done the work. The imagery needs to also reflect the environment that you have created at your destination. So some questions to ask yourself to ensure your environment is safe. Does my staff represent the range of customers that I serve? How diverse is our leadership team? When you're making decisions, you need to have diverse voices in the room. Because I'll see something, this happens all the time in fashion, and me and all of my other plus size friends, we can easily be like, not a single plus size person was asked about this, because our lived experience can tell you things that make sense that you could just not know without living it. And I know you know this as queer and lesbian women, that if you're not asked personally, sometimes your voice isn't heard. So how diverse is the leadership team? Do we have policies in place to address racism, not only from the staff, but also from the guests? This is the same way that you have to monitor your comments. Those are people coming to your page. Those are your guests. And it's the same way in person. If you have racist guests that are making ignorant comments to people that are coming to your destination or your accommodation, like, it really is on you to really enforce that policy and make sure that there are repercussions and that people feel safe. Is there a process to ensure feedback on how to be more inclusive? Is it addressed? This is really important. I've gone to so many Pride events and, they'll be like, here's your free t-shirt. Okay, I need a 2X. Oh, okay, well, the biggest size we have is medium. Okay, who do I tell that to? That's not okay. Like, we're not all small, So who takes in that feedback, and then who ensures that feedback is followed up on, and then how do you address that then with your customer? Is there a process of feedback to be more inclusive? How accessible is my business to people of all sizes? I mean, the chairs thing is like a really simple one. I can't tell you how many dinners I've sat through with chairs digging into my thighs because there were no other chairs or accommodations available to me, and I didn't want to not eat dinner with the people I was with. And this has been on press trips and other things. I'm uncomfortable, and it can be a really uncomfortable thing to speak up about. So if you are on the trip with somebody, you can say like, hey, do you need another chair? Or, you know, if you're working at the place, you can ask like, hey, are you comfortable? We have this chair instead. So I think just thinking about those things, if it doesn't direct you personally, just trying to be on the lookout for things that are making someone else uncomfortable. Like I have had bruises on my legs before from chairs, and you know, it's nice to have other people be able to speak up and be advocates. Do we use gendered language or participate in traditions that reinforce the gender binary? This is really important, and I know like cultures differ in terms of gendered language. But if you're traveling with someone who's like non-binary or gender non-conforming, and it's like there's very much like, okay, women over here, men over here, this can be really uncomfortable for people. So as a destination or you know, a business, ask yourself like, is the gendered aspect of this really necessary, or can I make it more universal for people of all genders? That also goes to, are you assuming people's genders? You know, no one ever looks at my husband and thinks he's trans or part of the community, but we are part of the community. So, you know, if you are seeing people there who you think, why are they here? They look straight to me. You just really don't know. So you want to just kind of be inclusive. If people choose to out themselves to you, that's one thing, but you know, be inclusive. And then the other thing I hear a lot is that, is this a safe space for families and also for people who are sober? You know, so much of travel can be centered around partying and just going out, and that's just not what everybody wants. So, you know, is this a safe space? And I really don't think you have to be everything to everybody, but you do have to really walk the walk, and recognize that really starts with your imagery, and who you want as your customers starts right from the pictures that people see on your website, on your social media. I know if I scroll back on a destination site and I see no people of color, I'm assuming that's not a safe place for me and my husband to go. If I see no plus size people ever, I'm assuming it's not super accessible and it's not really friendly to someone who's my size. So you're sending a message, whether or not you realize it, you are sending that message. So I think that that's just really important to think about the pictures you reshare. Like, what implicit biases do you have? Why did you like this picture of this couple kissing versus this other picture that you didn't decide to share? Why did you share that one? Why did you book this person over this person? We all have biases, and we have to ask ourselves, like, who are we leaving out by not sharing more diverse marketing? Because I know people, like a lot of my followers, they're like me. They are queer women in relationship with trans men, and they often feel left out of the LGBTQ community because they don't see people who look like them. And so I think that this is just so important. It takes time. No one is saying like, okay, now you have to automatically like switch everything over, and because you have to do the work. Like, you can't just like upload a picture and be like, I got this, I'm doing things differently. It has to be consistent. One time sharing someone different is tokenism. It's not really inclusion. So you have to make it a conscious effort to be more inclusive with the customers that you share, with the models that you hire, with the people who work with you, the people who are on your trips. If you're booking influencers, you know, are all those influencers white? Yes, it's harder to find trans travelers who are influencers, but are you trying harder to find them? Because they're out there. You just have to try harder, you know. So are we trying to, it's going to take more work to be more inclusive, but I think like that's something that we really need to do. So this is just my little let's connect. And that's it. I can see clapping, but I can't hear anyone.
There we go.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. Now I can hear it. I can take any questions that people may have.
Babs always...
Yeah, exactly. Babs is ready with the question.
Yes, yeah.
Hi, I always have questions in these. So anyway, Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation that shows a different side of the diversity issue that we all are very interested in.
Mm-hmm.
But now how, you know, when you're saying for those of us that are actually the people who don't market, but we're the ones that actually either do the tours or put together the tours,
Mm-hmm.
that's the industry that I'm in tourism.
Okay.
So I'm either a tour operator or sometimes I'm a tour guide. As a tour guide, I can be much more aware and be that person who makes sure everything is okay. But as a tour operator, when you're saying, you know, make sure when they get to the destination or when they are using your product, how do we know? We can't ask people, are you a plus size person? So what clues, what do we need to do in order to find out so that we can make sure there is more people that look the same or that have a feeling of affinity? Am I clear as to what I'm asking, Alysse?
Yes, totally. I think that's a really good question. And I think in general, when it comes to being inclusive, people don't want to ask. You know, I certainly don't, you know, I've been asked things that are very intrusive, like, are you pregnant? No, I'm not pregnant, just that. So, you know, you don't want to be intrusive, but there are simple ways that you can be inclusive without being intrusive. One of those is if you're a tour operator. Just yesterday, I was looking up like stand-up kayaks, and I was like, I want to do this, but I don't know if there's a weight limit. This is a simple thing. If you have a weight limit, put it on your website, like very simple. You know, I'm not going to pay for something and show up and be turned away because I've done that before. If you have equipment that requires sizing, you need to put that on your website. You need to let people know that you don't have what. If you're doing a scuba diving tour, you don't have what in my size. That's fine. I'm not going to pay for it and I'm not going to go. But you need to be upfront. So people, I've definitely done tours and things like that before where I've gotten there and wasn't able to be accommodated. And I hear this all the time. There's just not, it's almost like we're really not thought of as plus size travelers, because I would much rather just know before I even book it. And there's no information on the website. There's no one who, when I call, can answer that question. So I think just making sure that the website, it thinks of size as a potential limitation to the activity. And again, it also doesn't have to be. Is there a pharmacy that you can get that works for plus sizes? I've ziplined twice, so I know that they exist, but a lot of companies just don't have them. They don't make it known that they have them. So can you do the work to be more inclusive and then communicate that you are inclusive? In terms of tours, I don't know if you do walking tours or what kind of tours, but pace is a huge, huge, huge thing. I just physically can't walk as fast as everybody else. So I know when we were in New York, there was someone who said they did tours at your own pace. And I was like, sign me up. I just, you know, I don't walk fast. I am not, I know lesbians walk fast. I don't, I'm sorry. I hate to tell y'all, but I don't walk fast. And, you know, is there something with pace? You know, can you say like, this tour takes about this amount of time? And I've seen that before. I've seen that before on some travel sites where they're like, the activity level is this. And I'm like, okay, I then know that that's not for me. You don't necessarily have to be inclusive to everyone. I'm not saying, you know, every hiking tour has to be like perfect for me. You don't have to be
right.
Everybody. You
Alysse,
have to let them know. So yes.
Alysse, I'm sorry, but maybe I wasn't clear.
Okay.
That's not the question I was asking. What I was at, because I do all of that stuff anyway with everyone. Okay. But what I was asking, when I want to try to reach more people that might be, you know, a trans married couple or a full size people, how do I make the environment so that when they walk in the door, they see that we're inclusive? If we're not what questions should we be asking when somebody either submits something on our website or we pick up the phone and we're talking to them? What do we say? I know what I say when I want to find out if somebody's a lesbian. I know what I want to say if somebody's, you know, a person who doesn't like a lot of activities. I know all of those words, but is there some clue or some word, or is there a website we can go to so we can find out, you know, what we need to be asking, those questions when we're marketing it to them?
Yeah, I think I understand the question now. It really starts from the marketing. I know a lot of people like me and my husband, we're not necessarily going to even we're not even going to show up to be on the tour if you don't have people who look like us in your marketing on your website. So one way to do that is to partner with influencers who are from these communities. If I see an influencer who looks like me doing one of these trips, that does send the message that you are inclusive, you know. If you do a trip, if they do a trip with you and they give you feedback, you make their changes. So I think it's just a matter of not making comments like, why are you here? We've definitely gotten those comments before, which just doesn't make you feel good. If they signed up for LGBTQ tour, I think you should just like believe them that they belong, you know? So I think it's a matter of going out of your way and really finding influencers and people who are from those communities to do the tour first and let them speak for you. I think that's the best way. Because you can say, I'm inclusive, I'm inclusive, I'm inclusive, but at the end of the day, I know as a plus size person, I'm not really going to believe it coming from you. I'm going to believe it from someone else who looks like me. And that's really, really, really important. I just, because you can't necessarily understand the biases or some of the physical limitations that exist without living it. But that's fine, because you can book someone like me, somebody else who can come in and say, yes, this tour is perfect for someone who's plus size. And I get that question all the time. Every time I post something about travel, was this accessible? Did you feel welcomed? Did you feel accepted? And I get those questions all the time. So the people who you would be reaching out to, and I know you're not necessarily on the marketing side, but can you have that conversation with the people who are on the marketing side to say, hey, I think we need to bring in some influencers from a more diverse group. I know if they're on my tour, I'm going to make them feel great. And then they can share the message about the fact that, you know, we are an inclusive accommodation or tour or something like that. Does that make sense? Oh, I think she's on mute.
I think she is too.
It absolutely does. And yes, I was on mute. Thank you. So thank you so much. I'll let some other people ask some questions now.
Alysse, do you want to give a shout out to any particular destination or experience that you've had recently that you thought really did it well in the travel industry?
That's a good question. I can definitely shout out, I went to Puerto Rico in December. That was like my last big trip. Didn't think it would be my last big trip, but it was. And when we went ziplining, and of course I saw ziplining it was a press trip. I saw ziplining on the itinerary and I was like, oh my God, nervous, you know, and I didn't book it myself. If I had booked it myself, I would have done I would have called, I'm always prepared when I get there for the most part. And I hadn't. So I was really nervous. And, we get there and it was not even a question. No one said, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you can do this? They gave me just an extra harness, and it's just a little bit bigger. And one of the things that I loved, and the thing I ended up sharing first about the trip was something related to size inclusion. So I think that this really makes a difference. So the very first post I made about going to Puerto Rico was about this experience. You know, I said to one of the operators at the zipline tour, I said, is it true that if you weigh more that you go faster? And he said, yes, but it just means that your body's made for speed. And that was such a positive reframing that to me was such an example of who the people of Puerto Rico are, right? Is that we're going to make you feel included, and we're going to take something that maybe you might be feeling a little bit self-conscious about, or you're feeling othered. You know, this is the thing about inclusion, is that it can be really easy to accidentally make someone feel othered. And so in that moment, I felt like he took something I was kind of feeling a little iffy about and was like, no, it's almost like it's a superpower. And that ended up being the thing that I told people about first, about Puerto Rico. So I think that when you partner with diverse creators and you show that you walk the walk, that's what they're going to talk about. Because to me, that was such a strong example of who the people of Puerto Rico are and how they made me feel. So yeah, that was like a really positive experience. And that obviously like just really ended up transcending the rest of the trip. But that was the first activity that we did. And it felt really good to just be like, oh, I can do this. And also like, it's not a problem that they're accommodating me. That's the thing, is like, you don't want to feel like it's a problem. You want to just feel like you're doing the same thing as everybody else.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great example.
Yeah. Thanks.
And clearly it made a big impression on you. So yeah, that's a perfect lesson for everyone on the call, is how this is effective marketing and it works.
Yeah, it really works, because if I hadn't gone and shared that experience, you know, me sharing that experience means more customers who look like me hear that experience and think I can do it too, and I'm going to. That's really how you reach. Because I can tell, I mean, there's no like tracker for how many of my followers are plus size, but I can tell you it's like a big chunk. So I know that. So I can tell you that the people who see me do something look like me. And that can be, I mean, I'm sure Shayna and Gabby can affirm that. You probably have a lot of like lesbian couples that follow you, and they, like, your followers reflect who you are. So that's really the benefit of working with influencers, is that if you want to reach a more inclusive market, that's the role. I think influencers are the connection, and we represent that connection piece between a destination or a business and between that audience that you want to reach.
Alysse, you had mentioned reaching out to influencers. Do you have any influencers you can recommend?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I do have tons. I guess it depends on what you're looking for, and yeah, I can send a big list of. It depends on what the ask is, or.
If you want to include that in an email to me, and then I can send it out to everyone in my follow-up email.
Sure. Yeah, I just did a big like follow, like 15 people to follow who are non-binary for International Non-Binary Day. So I try to do that like on my page, but I can certainly send you a list. I just think it's so important that your feed doesn't look just like you. It should not just look like you. It should look like people who you can learn from. And I know I learned so much, obviously, from my husband, because we are opposite identities in every way. So I learned so much from him and vice versa. But yeah, you can learn. So you don't have to be married to a person to learn it. You can learn there are so many influencers sharing their authentic experiences online that you can learn from them too. So I will send a list of like diverse creators that I love for sure.
That's fantastic, because you bring up a really good point, because often you'll see online media press fams with destinations or whomever, and it's like 4 gay white males and 1 lesbian. It's like, well, how diverse are you of an audience are you really reaching with this group?
Right.
You bring up a very valid point that, and it could be just because they don't know them or know the connections.
Right. That's the thing, is I don't believe that it's on purpose exclusion. Right. I think it's access and network. Yeah. Who is in your network? It's the people that you already know. It's the people you see who go on every trip, and the people who have big followings. But at the same time, you have to recognize that there's value in partnering with a fashion creator potentially who loves to travel, because that's an untapped audience. You know, sure. Their audience loves to travel. They love to see their travel photos, but maybe that's not a main part of their content. But I remember I did a fashion campaign with someone who was a WWE wrestler, right? This is like crazy, right? And I was like, what is she doing? So cool. But what is she doing here? And she was plus size, so that was what she was doing there. And they told me she converted so much better than all the fashion bloggers, because her audience, plenty of people in her audience were plus size, but they didn't follow any of the other people who the company had ever worked with before. So they reached a whole new audience.
Sure.
So it's like, it's like you got to think beyond, like, it's not always about followers. Followers is like not the most important thing. It's about who can you reach, how engaged are people, what trust do they have, you know? That's really, really important, because followers is like one small piece of the puzzle. But yeah, I think there isn't a lot of representation in LGBTQ travel blogging, but that doesn't mean that those press trips should be less diverse because of that. I think it's maybe making sure if you know someone can create great content with clothes, they can create great content with clothes in your beautiful destination. You know what I mean? So
Right.
willing to kind of go outside the box and just think differently. So yeah, that's that. And I'm so grateful that I have really been welcomed into the travel space. I don't have a background of being a travel blogger. I have a background in fashion, but I was so welcomed and I love this community so much. So I think, yeah, and that's what people said when they travel with me. Like, you're just like every travel blogger, except you just bring better outfits. And I was like, you know, that's really the difference. And not that you guys don't have great outfits. I'm just saying, you know, a lot of people travel light and backpack. You know, their outfits aren't their main priority, is what I'm saying.
Right. No, you bring a really interesting perspective. Thank you. Babs, I think
So-
you had a question.
Yeah, no, I do. You can see me futzing around with my thing here. First of all, could you get the Let's Connect off of the screen, the share screen, so that we can?
So sorry.
Yeah, it's driving me crazy, but that's besides the point. Now
sorry.
I get.
I didn't know it's still on. You didn't tell me before. I'm sorry.
That's all right. No, I'm one of those people. So here's the other thing about that. When Loanne just asked you about destinations, again, to focus a little bit more in on my question, I have a plus client, and now I'm learning to call it plus, right? Rather than full size, correct?
Yes.
See, so I've learned something right away, which is good. I have some plus clients. They want to go away somewhere. Are there specific places, destinations? Now I'm wearing my travel agent hat, okay? Because I wear lots of different hats, talk about fashion. So now I need to know where, because again, for them to walk in, just like when you're on a lesbian experience with an Olivia Cruz or a suite, something where they've taken over a whole resort, you walk through the doors and all of a sudden your life has completely changed. They're doing it with the trans community now, as you know, on the trans end. And thank God for people like Richard Gray in Fort Lauderdale, who's really made that the main focus. How do they get that wow feeling? Are there weekends, plus weekends? Are there festivals? If there's anything you have that you can also send to Kristen so you can let us know, because, you know, we only have a limited time on this call, but just places, because that's how it all got started in the 90s. We were sending people to festivals, or we were sending them to weeks that were happening that we felt that was something that they had an affinity to. So for the travel agents and the tour operators who want to book into it, that would be very, very helpful.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's a great question. So there is a lot of events where you walk in and you're like, oh my God, I'm surrounded by other plus size people. None of those events that I've ever been to, and I've been to a lot of those events, none of them are LGBTQ focused specifically, but a lot of them are inclusive and I would say welcoming. So a lot of those events revolve around fashion right now, which is really a shame because not everybody cares about fashion, but yeah, a lot of them, there's an event called CurvyCon in New York, the Curvy Fashionista Style Expo in Atlanta. So there's a lot of those events where there's speakers and everybody there is plus size. But is there anyone who's really created a space for plus size LGBTQ travelers? Not yet. I would love to do that one day.
So maybe that's what you're going to do with the help of all of us, right?
Maybe. Right. Yes. There is the Fat Girls Traveling Facebook group, and they put on a fat camp, and I went to that last year, so I can send you. I have a YouTube video and a blog post that I did, but that was really amazing because obviously a lot of us who grew up being plus size, that was this idea that you go to this camp and you come back and you're transformed. So she took this concept of something, as obviously reclaiming the word queer, took a concept of something that was used to harm us and reframed it and made this amazing body positive camp. And that is probably the most, in terms of traveling, that's the most inclusive travel experience that I had. And I was on the panel talking about love and relationships. So I was there to talk about being love and relationships in the sense of being queer. So I felt like by booking me, and then there were other queer women who were there as speakers, it was inclusive in that way. But yeah, I would love to have the experience of walking into a room and like everyone there is LGBTQ and plus size. That would be cool, but that has never happened to me. But maybe, yeah, I'll make that happen. But yeah, so I would say Fat Girls Traveling is a great resource. There's Fat Girls Hiking, another resource. There's a lot of resources for plus size travel, but nothing that combines both yet. So I guess I'll work on that. Muted.
We keep muting Babs.
I can't hear.
No, Babs's microphone is making you cut out. That's why I'm muting her.
Oh,
sorry.
All right. I was just saying for Alysse that this is great that you'll have something that you can help us with, and then we can have things. That's what our association is all about. And we watched it happen. I've been around since the 90s, darling. So now it's like you see it all happen, but it takes people like you who are wanting to try to make it more visible, and not visible just for the visibility, but visible for the enjoyment and the experience. Did I go out again? No, I'm on. All right. Thank you. I'm shutting up now, everyone. Okay.
No, I think that's so true, is that, you know, that's why this is so great, is that I don't know everything about travel at all, but you all do. And between everybody, like, we can create a more inclusive, welcoming environment for people of all sizes and people of all genders. We can do that together because we each bring something different to the table. So yeah, I welcome everybody's feedback for sure about how I can kind of make this happen more in travel.
Well, and I wish we could have had more people on the call, but we are recording and we'll share this video out with the membership. And I hope more people will watch this and really make the time to think about the messages that you're sharing today, Alysse, because all of us are really well-intentioned and we've all been working in the space in varying degrees, but we all have a lot to learn ourselves too. So, so thank you very much for being here. And sorry to just vanish for a bit there. Connectivity is a little unstable.
Yeah, I think everyone is well-intentioned, and it's just a matter of you don't know what you know? So that we can all do better if we just kind of expand our network a little bit and we can learn from each other. So.
Absolutely. Thanks, Annette. Are there any other questions from the group before we sign off? Everyone's so quiet. But everyone is saying thanks for a great presentation.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
Yes. So a big thumbs up and all the way around. And again, thank you all for being a part of it. Yeah, there we go. Everybody unmute and give her a round of applause.
Well, I was going to clap.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Damn thing again. Are we going to have another one again? I'm back.
I don't think you ever really left, Beth. Yes, we absolutely will continue to have
That's all right.
women in business. It won't be on we're not doing them on a regular basis, but as we put together interesting new topics that we feel will be really relevant for the group, we'll bring them back. Because one of the big things that's come out of IGLTA Members Connect is how much we all do want to connect, and not just in a pandemic, but year round. And we can't just do it once a year at a convention. We really need to have more opportunities for our members to meet, even if it's virtually, face-to-face, and to share ideas and inspiration and best practices. Because it's a really special community. And so we want to keep this going. So yes, you'll be the first to know about when we have another Women in Business on the schedule. I promise. And thank you again, all of you, for being here today. Care until the next time. Check out the IGLTA Members Connect page to see other topics and sessions that are coming up in the future. And see you soon, somewhere in the world.